I want to welcome to the program Justin Kite, PragerU Kids Creative Director. He's part of the team that created the PragerU Trailblazer series. Justin, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for sending me a copy of Trailblazer. My son Patrick, who's 10, is an avid reader. He's very excited to dive in, so thank you.
Hey, no problem. Thanks, Mr. Zioli, for having me on.
First of all, please call me Rich. I beg of you.
Will do.
Secondly, thank you for having me out to PragerU a couple months ago. It was great. It was an honor to be out there. Michael Knowles and I had a great time talking about Animal Farm. What an impressive operation you guys have. But first of all, let me ask, how is Dennis Prager doing?
He's getting better and better.
Good.
It's not an ideal situation by any means, but if there's anybody that can tackle it, it's Mr. Prager.
Okay, good, good, good. Well, Michael did a fantastic job. I had a blast doing it with him, and I can't wait for the episode to be published. Um, when I left, you guys gave me a whole bunch of stuff. You gave me a bunch of books, which I brought home to the kids, also socks, really cool stuff. But what's the mission of PragerU in general? And then let's talk about the mission when it comes to kids.
Well, I think with PragerU, it's to take complex ideas and make them digestible for the masses. And our bread and butter is our 5-minute videos, and it really is, you know, it's taking the things that take PhDs and experts, hours to talk about, and we make them bite size, and we make them to where they can reach the masses.
How many views do these videos get?
Oh goodness, millions and millions, and world, and like our focus is within the borders primarily, but our audience is even global.
Is the secret the fact that they are not very, very long? Because I know we live in a day right now where everybody's starved for attention. So
I mean, sometimes I would even argue that the 5 minutes is a little long. Like that's
yeah.
what a war we have with attention spans. But then our mission with PragerU Kids, to borrow a phrase from our CEO Marissa Streit that she uses all the time, is to teach what isn't being taught, and that's what we strive to do, both in our ideology, but then in the beliefs that we prescribe to, but specifically with this Trailblazer series, sometimes teaching what isn't being taught isn't so much a style, but just like like there's a vacuum, and things have just been either forgotten or neglected or purposefully omitted. But then that's where PragerU Kids steps in.
So when it comes to Trailblazer, what's the idea behind it? It's going to be a series of books.
It is a series of 7 biographies that tells the tales of courage and bravery inside of the American spirit. And so, we're aiming to kind of reintroduce American heroism and the just tried and true, like these foundational principles that led this country to become what it is, which, like objectively, like courage and bravery is always compelling.
Yeah.
And we've got, we as the United States of America, we have this entire arsenal of stories that put bravery and courage in, like, in big letters. But for whatever reason, and I have my theories, but those types of stories have been placed on the back burner for a few generations now, and so it's our job to bring them back to the forefront, and to do so in a way that is unique and special and of the times, so that even though these are old tales, we tell them in a way that is contemporary and will address that ever shrinking attention span that you talk of.
Justin, I appreciate you being here today. Justin Kite's with me, PragerU. He's the creative director for PragerU Kids. You're a former public school teacher. You got disillusioned with the public school system. So what happened? One day you stumbled along a PragerU video and it changed your life?
Kind of as kind of Hollywood as that sounds. I was a public school teacher for 11 years, and on top of that, for 2 more years, I taught teachers that were entering the public school system. And one thing about teaching social studies, which was primarily what I did, is you're constantly on the search for good resources to supplement the lessons that you give to your kids. And I came across 5-minute videos and was just struck by their honesty, and that they were addressing some things that I had been curious about. And just because me myself being a product of public schools and then being trained in the public school system, and I never considered myself anything but a liberal and anything but a Democrat, but there were some things that honestly didn't pass the sniff test, and I was always curious about. And so then when I started digging into the 5-minute videos and I started finding examples of these kind of debunks of those things that didn't pass that sniff test for me, it piqued my interest and dug a little deeper. And as soon as as soon as I saw enough, I was like, man, I want to work for these people. And so I was able to make that happen.
Good for
Kind of
you,
with
man.
kind of with a shared enemies. I would say was kind of what brought me into the PragerU family.
That is such a cool story. I love that, and then leaving, of course, the security of the public school system in terms of a job to basically, be part of something like PragerU is amazing. My theory on why we don't talk about or teach our children about America's heroism and bravery and courage and these things is because the left wants us to believe America sucks and we've always been a horrible country. And the goal is to destroy the Constitution because the Constitution is the guardrails, the safeguard that keeps the left from controlling the country and taking over with their socialist utopia nonsense. And if they can convince everybody that America was built on a pillar of white supremacy and slavery and just a bunch of rich white dudes in Philly and Boston who just wanted to get richer, then you have to say that the whole country was built on this foundation that needs to be torn down. And it's not enough just to topple statues. You then have to tear up the founding documents and start over. And I have long believed that that is the ultimate goal of the left. It was never about, toppling Confederate generals years ago, and it was never about changing the name of schools. It was always eventually going to get down to the founding fathers, and they're there now, right? I mean, they're changing and trying to cancel Thomas Jefferson. They're changing the name of George Washington schools, and yet Woodrow Wilson remains. And we could talk about that in another show, but in terms of American presidents, the founders and the people who were behind the revolution and the writers and the thinkers, they want all of that erased. And this is where you get into things like the 1619 Project and the other nonsense to indoctrinate our children that America is fundamentally rotten. And so if you convince them of that, then the obvious conclusion in their mind becomes, well, we have to start over. And that's their goal, in my opinion, Justin.
I agree with you 100%. But I'd also just like to add that inside of the study of history, and for generations now, there has been this movement to do away with what the opponents call the great man approach or the
Yeah.
great man theory.
Yeah.
And there is a concerted movement to remove the agency of the individual and make everything about systems and make everybody just a product of their system. And so when someone does something courageous or incredible, that's reduced. And when somebody does something terrible,
Yeah.
or is an enemy of the people, then that's reduced, and it's all chalked up to everybody just being a product of their environment. in hopes that then they can drum up enough like support to then deconstruct and crush the environment and have a brand new system, which then gets in line with what you were talking about with the destruction of the Constitution.
Earlier this week. I was on Fox News, shameless plug Monday, talking about the Nate Silver report about young men and how they are just fleeing the Democrat Party. And a big part of it was there's now a return of the idea that, hey, I can be successful. I want to be successful. I want to have it all. I want the money and the car and the house and the beautiful wife and the dream. I want the dream. And young men now feel confident enough to try to pursue that and to become a great man again. And the Democrat Party's message has been, you cannot make it. And if you try to do those things, you're toxic, you're toxic masculinity. So the broader point of, yes, it is about knocking down the individual and saying, for the good of the collective, you have to sacrifice. So either for the sake of climate change, you have to sacrifice for the fact that other people in your class are not as smart as you or don't work as hard. So in the name of equity, you have to sacrifice. You have to give up certain things. And if you do succeed, you've succeeded on the pillars of something that was created, that was evil in its form. So you have to give it up when you do succeed. And then you start hearing people screaming about the oligarchs and the oligarchy, as Bernie Sanders would say it. I'm just happy that there is a return. I credit PragerU in a big way because I know there are so many young people who watch those 5-minute videos and have had their eyes open up. So we're getting back, I do think, to that place, and certainly it doesn't help with the last. I mean, it doesn't hurt with the last election that you have a guy who has always believed in success, who won. That people are now saying, like, you know what? I don't want to have a message of doom and gloom, and then I'm a victim. I want to go out there and try. And part of what Nate Silver was writing about, which I thought was fascinating, was this idea of there's a message of neuroticism out there and fear, like you can't make it, you can't succeed. The government needs to be there to help you. And young men, in particular now, young people are rejecting that and saying, you know what? I want to be a risk taker. With everything around courage and bravery, inherently there is, correct me if I'm wrong here, Justin, an enormous sense of risk taking, not risk aversion.
Well, I'm so glad that you brought up the male aspect of this, and specifically the young male aspect of this, because for most of my career, I taught in environments that were, economically marginalized would be kind of like the leftist euphemism to use. But frankly, let's just say, like, I taught in the hood. And I got fed up with the amount of just importance placed upon race, and so I left and went, like, basically just like cross town in hopes of getting away, saying bye to all the, like, just like racial, like, exceptionalism, and like this race has to do this and this race has to do that, and you're the victims, you're the oppressors, all the yada yada. But what I found immediately upon crossing the tracks, so to speak, and going to the more privileged and higher socioeconomic, like, neighborhood, was that there was still the tension, but instead of it being racial, it was based on male female. And that year I was teaching 5th grade, and there I was surrounded by, it was, it's the last year of elementary school, and elementary schools are dominated by women even more than middle schools and high schools. And I felt an attack on masculinity, and it seemed like I call it like the kindness brigade, and they were after any type of, it takes a risk to raise your hand and try to answer the question, in front of your 30 classmates. It takes sticking your neck out with an element of aggressiveness to be the best in the class. And any time there was this element of a young man trying to be the best, it was squashed.
Yeah.
And that brings me back to our Trailblazer series, because really what we're trying to do here, on the surface, it's to have great stories that are great for anybody, and they are. But we need examples, and we need examples of masculine greatness in this country, because frankly, we wouldn't be here without it. And it feels funny to the students. I'm telling, like kids are the ultimate BS detectors, and they pick up on the way in which things are being warped in how they're being taught to them. And so, like, us providing these resources for teachers and for parents to have these great stories of dudes who risked it all, like not just like they risked their job, they risked their lives, and they went out into the great unknown, and and they made it. They
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah. And you can do it too. And that's the
Most
message that needs to be transmitted, is that you can do it too. Take a risk and go for it. And if you fail, go for it again. And if you fail, learn from it and go for it again. And that message has to be broadcast from everywhere. So I applaud PragerU. I applaud you guys for doing this Trailblazer series. It's great, and I would highly recommend you go to PragerU.com today and sign up. Justin Kirk, thanks so much for joining me here today, man. Or Kite, excuse me, here in Philadelphia. Justin, are you on social media? Can we follow you as well?
Heck no.
Oh, good for you. All right,
Yeah.
fair enough.
But you can go to Amazon and get our books. You can also go to our website that'll link you to our books. You can buy the books in isolation. We have all 7 as paperbacks, or you can get the collection in a beautiful hard copy edition that is spectacular if you've got kids. And even if you don't have kids, it makes a wonderful coffee table book.
I agree. I should have brought mine in today for this, and I meant to, and I forgot. But I'll do it tomorrow, and I'll show everybody on the YouTube stream tomorrow. So, Justin, thanks for joining us here, man. I appreciate it. Keep up the great work at PragerU, and send my best to everyone over there, please.
Will do. It was wonderful meeting you.
Wonderful meeting you.